Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is Daily Drop number 139. We're going to do two articles on tonight's drop, so I'm not going to be too long-winded here on the monologue. The first one has to do with Nicholas Tartaglione and how he wants that video footage found. And the second one has to do with the negligence of the prosecution of Jeffrey Epstein and the first time he was arrested. So I'm going to jump right in, and we're going to start with the article about Nicholas Tartaglione. This article is from the Yonkers Times, and the author is Dan Murphy. As the trial of ex-Briarcliff Manor police officer Nicholas Tartaglione continues in White Plains Federal Court, he and his attorneys are hoping for a miracle to happen so that Tartaglione can avoid the death penalty for murdering 4 people in a drug deal gone bad. Now ask yourselves, folks, is this the sort of man that you would put Jeffrey Epstein in a jail cell with? Now, we know that Jeffrey Epstein's an evil monster, right? But do you think it's good for his health to put him in a jail cell with a guy like Tartaglione, who is trying to avoid a death penalty for murdering 4 people in a drug deal gone bad, supposedly? This is the kind of man where you put one of the top federal inmates? This is the kind of man you put him in with? Why would you do that? What sort of motivation would the prison system have to put Jeffrey Epstein in a cell with somebody like Nicholas Tartaglione? Makes you wonder, folks. It sure makes you wonder. Tartaglione spent time in the Manhattan Correction Center at the same time that Jeffrey Epstein was also incarcerated there last year. The two shared a jail cell for some of that time, including when Epstein tried to kill himself during the summer, and Tartaglione claims he saved Epstein from his suicide attempt. So Nicholas Tartaglione is, maybe he was the mob associate that was skulking in the bushes dressed as a ninja. I mean, come on, really? This is all so ridiculous. Why in the world was Jeffrey Epstein in with someone like Tartaglione and not in with somebody who was accused of blue-collar crimes or some sort of fraud or some sort of embezzlement, something like that? You put him in with a guy that's looking at 4 murder charges, a guy that could build serious credibility on the yard if he assaults Jeffrey Epstein, a guy that could be easily swayed to assault Jeffrey Epstein. That's the kind of guy you're going to put him in the jail cell with, huh? Boy, that sounds like a really fantastic idea, and whoever's making those decisions is obviously a Rhodes Scholar. But the videotape of the Epstein-Tartaglione cell cannot be found, and Tartaglione's attorney has filed a motion calling for an investigation or evidentiary hearing to determine how the video disappeared. The video would show, according to Tartaglione, that he acted appropriately during the suicide attempt and that he did not harm Epstein. Well, I agree that there should be a hearing, and if there's a tape that shows that, let's see it. But it's kind of convenient that the government was filming the wrong tier when this occurred, isn't it? It's sort of convenient that they had this kind of man in the cell with Jeffrey Epstein, and it's sort of convenient for everyone involved except for Tartaglione, who's already facing 4 life sentences 4 murder charges and a life sentence at the very least. Pretty convenient that he happened to be the one inside the cell with Epstein. Tartaglione and his attorney are also claiming a conspiracy theory that the video may have been destroyed, deliberately, or mysteriously disappeared by the government. How is that a conspiracy theory at this point? The videotape comes up missing, and their excuse is they were recording the wrong tier. So it's a conspiracy theory for people to ask questions. It's a conspiracy theory for people to have legitimate worries about what's going on, to have a legitimate worry about what's happening inside of our justice system. That's a conspiracy theory? Last December, the U.S. Attorney's Office admitted that the video no longer existed and the staff at the correction center had inadvertently preserved video from the wrong tier. How does this even happen? And who is the staff? How come that staff isn't put on leave as well? That staff is just as culpable as the 2 people who fell asleep, right? Shouldn't these people be brought up on charges? What happened to the chain of custody with the evidence? Isn't it a crime for somebody to get involved in the chain of custody and to lose evidence? On July 23, 2019, at 1:30 a.m., Epstein was found with injuries to his neck at the Metropolitan Correctional Center. Some media reports have suggested that Tartaglione might have tried to kill Epstein to prevent him from testifying against his powerful friends, including two presidents, Bill Clinton and Donald Trump. Look, I have no evidence that points to Tartaglione being a paid hitman or someone that was given some money to do this or given some sort of incentive to do that. I don't have any evidence of that. What I do find weird is that he, Tartaglione, a man who is facing 4 murder charges, would be in a jail cell with Jeffrey Epstein at all. The optics are horrible, and there are way too many coincidences here for me to believe the official narrative. They're going to have to come up with something better. And until then, I'm agnostic on the whole entire thing. I'm willing to believe whatever, wherever the evidence points me at this point. Epstein died weeks later, August 10th, in what was determined to be a suicide by hanging, allegedly. Conspiracy theories swirl about Epstein's death, including his brother claiming that he was murdered. At the time of his death, Epstein had no cellmate and was no longer on suicide watch. This is weird to me, what the author says here. His brother claiming that he was murdered? No. His brother was claiming that he was murdered on the official statement of Dr. Bodden, who was hired by the family to observe the autopsy and to look at what was going on. So it's they kind of leave that out. That's kind of like lying by omission here. You got to put that in. That's an important part of the story. It's not like Epstein's brother is just standing around saying, no, he wasn't killed. That's it. I just know he wasn't killed. There's actually, a respected man in the field, Dr. Bodden, who is contending that the official narrative is not the true narrative. So that's pretty important, and that should be in the article. Government prosecutors argued the video isn't needed since they aren't disputing the basic facts as spelled out by Tartaglione, and he is not charged with any crimes against Epstein while both were in prison. So since there's no crime, no big deal, right? It doesn't matter that they were filming the wrong tier. Nobody should be held responsible for that. It doesn't matter that only the 2 lowest level guards in the whole entire building pretty much are being scapegoated. None of that matters according to the prosecutors. None of that matters to Maureen Comey. Prosecuting the case in White Plains Federal Court is Maureen Comey, the daughter of former FBI Director James Comey. Comey and jurors have also witnessed a slimmed-down version of Tartaglione, who for 20 years has looked like a weightlifting or steroid-using cop when he was a member of the Briarcliff Manor Police Force. He was jacked up. Dude was yoked as hell. If you look at those old pictures of him, he looks like he's one of those bodybuilder competition cats. I mean, he was big as hell. There is no reason, again, I hate to beat a dead horse, but there is no reason for Jeffrey Epstein to be put in a cell with this man. If you know anything about how the jail works and how things work inside of prison, you know that you have to separate limp wrists like Jeffrey Epstein from alphas like Tartaglione. Tartaglione and his attorney appear to want to use the fact that he was with Epstein in the correctional facility as a bargaining chip in his trial, in which 4 bodies were found on his property in upstate New York. He has been jailed for almost 3 years pending his trial because he is considered a flight risk. So this guy is so dangerous that he's been jailed for 3 years because he's considered a flight risk, and you're going to put Jeffrey Epstein in the cell with him. Okay, sounds like a great idea, but let's only, arrest the 2 low-hanging fruit guards. No supervisors, no directors, no warden of the prison. In fact, we'll move the warden of the prison over, and we'll even give him a cush job until the public outcry is so severe that we have to walk that back as well. Who is running this Justice Department? I mean, and I'm not just talking about now. I'm talking about for the last 25 or 30 years. It's Keystone Cops on repeat over and over again at the Justice Department. What a bunch of clowns. Tartaglione left the Briarcliff Police Department on a disability pension and after being suspended for 3 years after lying about a drunk driving case. Now, if that was all he was in jail for, the disability pension, the lying about that, and then the drunk driving case, blah, 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 then fine. I could see why you'd put him in a cell with Epstein. But a man who is accused of 4 murders, this is who you're putting in with Epstein. In December 2016, Tartaglione was arrested for the murders of 4 Hispanic men in the Liquid Lounge bar in Chester, owned by Tartaglione's brother. The day after his arrest, the bodies of the 4 men were found buried on property that Tartaglione had rented in Otisville, Orange County. Yeah, this is a quality man, right? This is a man that is a solid member of society. This is the sort of man that you should entrust the most precious and the most important prisoner pretty much in the federal prison systems as their bunkmate. This is totally who you should have in that prison cell. I mean, this is a bang up job by Barr and Company. Tartaglione was charged with conspiracy to purchase 5 kilos of cocaine in a drug deal that went bad and ended up with 4 men dead or missing. Federal prosecutors and the FBI have said that only one of the men killed, Martin Luna, was involved in drug deals with Tartaglione, and the other 3 men were not involved but were in the wrong place at the wrong time. Okay, so that shows that he has a compunction to kill no matter what. It doesn't matter if you were in the drug deal or not, but I have to cover my tracks, so I'm going to light you up too. So this is the kind of man that we're supposed to trust in the jail cell. This is the kind of man where we're supposed to trust that he was trying to help Epstein, even though Epstein told his lawyers and others that he was assaulted by Tartaglione. We're just supposed to trust him, huh? And then to add another layer to the cake, we're supposed to trust Maureen Comey as well. Yeah, that's never going to occur. I trust the doorknobs in Wuhan more than I trust Maureen Comey. Tartaglione has pled not guilty to all of the charges, but earlier this year, prosecutors said they will seek the death penalty against him, and last month, corrections officers found an illegal cell phone in Tartaglione's prison cell. He remains in jail until his trial and verdict. I wonder if he was trying to put the pressure on Epstein and get Epstein to fill up his commissary as well. I wonder if Epstein filled up Tartaglione's commissary and ponied over any dough. We know that guys like Tartaglione look for marks like Epstein, and if Epstein would have been in general population, if he would have actually lived and went to prison, you know he would have been holding someone's pocket and he would have been wearing lipstick. There is zero doubt, unless, of course, he was filling up commissaries. And I wonder if there's any sort of financial trail linking these two together. I highly doubt it. It was if he did do it, it was probably on the snide, definitely on the shadow move. But it's interesting to wonder if he gave Tartaglione any dough. Epstein and Tartaglione bunked together in prison for 2 weeks, and Tartaglione's attorney, Bruce Barkett, claims the two became friends. Oh yeah, sure. I'm positive that Tartaglione, in there for 4 murders, and a guy that's looking at a life sentence, wants his name attached to a serial pedophile when he hits the main line. He already has it bad enough that he's a cop, so now he's going to hit the main line as not only a cop, but somebody that's friends with a chomo? You don't know how prison works if you think that's the case. The special housing unit wing of the jail where both were staying has no windows and is infested with rodents, insects, and has standing water, according to a complaint about the living conditions by Tartaglione. Well, I'm not a big fan of third world living conditions for people like this. And in prisons in America, we should at least be humane. But I'm not losing any sleep that these scumbags had rats and infested with insects. There's a lot of people in America who are living in poverty that have to live like that as well. So I'm not losing any sleep over that. But I do wish the conditions at these facilities would be cleaned up. I think it's better for all of us as a society if we treat people humanely. Years ago, this reporter lived in the village of Briarcliff Manor at the same time Tartaglione was a police officer there. One of the local public access channels featured an odd host of his own show. His name was Clay Tiffany. Tiffany enjoyed taking the local government to task and suing them for violating his First Amendment rights on a few occasions. Yes, Tiffany was a strange character, but he was an honest Briarcliff resident looking out for the public's good and no harm to anyone. After talking about Tartaglione again and again on his cable access show, Tiffany was beaten almost to death by Tartaglione on the shores of the Hudson River after taking a swim in 1999. This is the guy, again, that's in a cell with Jeffrey Epstein. They know about this. The prison staff knew what sort of person this Tartaglione was. They knew he was violent. They knew he was a criminal. They knew he had a past of violence. But yet, you have him in the jail cell with Jeffrey Epstein like that's a good idea. While Tartaglione was never charged nor found guilty of a crime, Tiffany's accusations were similar to accusations made against Tartaglione when he was a police officer in Mount Vernon and Pauling. While the U.S. Attorney's Office investigated and found there was not enough evidence to charge Tartaglione with a civil rights violation, he was suspended from the Briarcliff PD for 3 years and was fired in 2009, the same year he beat Tiffany to near death. Oh, of course the U.S. Attorney's Office investigated and found that there wasn't enough evidence. They have to protect their boy, right? They have to protect their guy, Tartaglione. Meanwhile, in reality, Tartaglione's probably running a criminal enterprise on the side, trying to hook up 4 kilos of coke. I mean, we're talking a criminal here, folks. We're not talking somebody that, made a mistake. We're talking a career criminal here that was moonlighting as a police officer. Tartaglione sued and was put back on the job, winning more than $300,000 in back pay in 2003 and retired on disability in 2008. That's real nice. Isn't it nice that he gets this great pension? A scumbag like this guy has a nice, great, fantastic pension. Tartaglione was the target of an FBI civil rights investigation for physically abusing several people, including Tiffany. The town settled with the now deceased Tiffany for $1 million, and Tartaglione settled with Tiffany for $200,000. The sad story of Jeffrey Epstein never seems to end, with connections to Westchester continuing to linger. Noted Westchester attorney David Boies has taken the cases of several women who have accused Epstein of sexual abuse, and those lawsuits against the Epstein estate continue. So I was born in the Bronx but lived in Westchester for 10 years, so this is all very familiar to me, and I know for a fact that there's a lot of corruption within Westchester as far as politicians go and, these higher-ups in these agencies. There's a lot of corruption there, and Tammany Hall, is not, something that is something of the past. New York is still run on this sort of, backroom dealing type of way. New York is just a corrupt ass place, and I am glad I do not live there anymore. All right, our next article is from the New York Post, and this is from the author is Lee Brown, and the headline is Florida investigators reportedly knew about Jeffrey Epstein accuser in 2008. Well, they knew all the way back in 96 as well with Marie Farmer, okay? So while this is big, this is a bombshell, it's a big deal that Marie Farmer came forward all the way back in the mid-90s, and this all could have been ended if people would have just listened to her, but it wasn't. So now we have another case, seeing another victim in 2008 who had come forward, and again, nobody listened. This is the problem, folks. This is the problem with our justice system as it is set up. If you have money, nobody even wants to hear about it. A Jeffrey Epstein accuser at the heart of his serious charges last year had been known to Florida prosecutors more than 10 years earlier, but was never called before the fallen money man, pedophile, got his sweetheart deal, it was claimed on Thursday. Of course he wasn't. That deal was made in the back room between the prosecutors and Jeffrey Epstein's high-profile team led by Alan Dershowitz, so it would be made in the dark of night, so nobody would know about it. They knew what sort of scummy deal it was, and they went forward with it anyway. As minor victim 1, she was the only New York accuser whose allegations were detailed in major charges that the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Southern District of New York brought against Epstein last year, a sign of how important she had been to the case. That is pretty significant. If they're using this accuser's case to bring it against Epstein in the SDNY, then you know that this is a very, very credible witness, folks. Identified only as Jane Doe, she claimed she was just 14 when she was lured to Epstein's Upper East Side mansion in 2002 and was sexually assaulted countless times over 3 years, according to court documents. Look, this is his MO. How many times have we heard it? How many times have we heard about the young girls running around Jeffrey Epstein? How many times have we heard about the massage parties? How many times did the federal authorities hear about it? And how many times did they do nothing? Now ABC News claims she had also cooperated with Florida prosecutors in a 2008 investigation that ended in Epstein receiving a controversial sweetheart deal and getting just 13 months in jail, most of which he served from his private office. What a travesty of justice, folks. I know people that have received 7, 8-year sentences for illegal gambling, and this man gets 13 months, with most of it being done on house arrest? Talk about the two-tiered justice system. She was questioned by the FBI and subpoenaed for testimony by federal prosecutors, but never made it before a grand jury because Epstein reached his then-secret deal by copping to lesser charges, ABC News said, citing court documents and multiple sources familiar with the events. Of course he copped a lesser charge. Guys like Jeffrey Epstein always copped a lesser charges because the prosecutors are chummy with people like this. The prosecutors only like to go after the low-hanging fruit. If you're a drug dealer from South Central Los Angeles and they catch you, well, don't worry, all your assets are being seized. Your mom lives in that house? We don't care, we're taking it. Oh, your little sister goes to school from that house? We're taking it. Jeffrey Epstein, on the other hand, all of his estates are still being managed. People are still drawing a paycheck. One of the places hasn't even been raided yet. So you tell me, folks, is there a two-tier justice system in this country or not? The claims further anger those involved in Epstein's case, who believe there was always enough evidence to throw away the key on the pedophile, who had been accused of abusing young girls for years before he hanged himself, allegedly, in his Manhattan lockup in August. Of course there was always the evidence, but he was being protected. When you're being protected by the intelligence apparatus, this is what occurs. And, look, when I say the intelligence apparatus, I don't mean just the Mossad or just the CIA. I believe that the CIA was certainly involved in this. The CIA would never let something like this occur in their backyard without them having their grubby, disgusting fingers all over it. The Five Eyes of intelligence in general are a detriment to the welfare of the whole entire world, folks. The potential was always there, Spencer Cooven, an attorney who represented 3 of Epstein's alleged victims in the Florida case, told ABC. The government shut this thing down and pled this thing out before going through and talking to probably more than half of the women that were involved in this whole thing. Had they conducted a full investigation and taken their time, this would have been a whole different story. Of course it would have been. That's why they rushed. They were being pressured by Dershowitz and the rest of the clowns that were defending Epstein. They were being rushed by them. The prosecutors knew they were in over their heads. The prosecutors knew that they weren't going to beat these guys because they knew that the buttons were going to be pushed at whatever level they needed to be pushed at for this case to be pushed away. And it's disgusting that that's what it looks like the case may be here, but folks, that's where the evidence has led us. And once we've pulled back the curtain and taken a look, I don't know how you can come up with any other plausible scenario here. This deal was hammered out in the back room between the prosecutors, who in my opinion are complicit in all of this, and the dream team of Jeffrey Epstein, with the sole intent of making sure there was blanket immunity for everybody involved, including, I kept my underwear on, Dershowitz, the man who was also making the deal. The accuser, now a 31-year-old mother, has filed a civil lawsuit against Epstein's estate, saying his abuse has forever scarred her and altered her life. Yeah, 100% it has, and I hope she gets a king's ransom out of this whole deal. I hope she gets a king's ransom, and then she should go ahead and sue the state prosecutors in Florida and the federal prosecutors. An attorney representing the women declined to comment to ABC. A spokesperson for the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Southern District of New York also declined to comment to the network. Marie Villafana, the former Florida federal prosecutor who led the initial investigation, is prohibited from discussing it, said her attorney Ty Kelly. However, if the Department of Justice were to waive that privilege, she believes it would provide a fuller and more accurate picture of how she handled this matter and how she advocated for victims at every turn, Kelly told ABC. Oh yeah, I'm sure that you'll say that because you know the Justice Department isn't going to waive. The Justice Department isn't going to release this information, this privileged information, because the Justice Department is scummy as well. Why would the Justice Department want to help out the victims at this point, the survivors? At every turn, the Justice Department has frustrated the attempts of these survivors to get whole and make this right. So why is the Justice Department all of a sudden going to just release this? I don't buy it. Until there is a true crusader who shows up in the Justice Department, a true crusader who does not give a goddamn about your status or your money or who's protecting you, until that person shows up in the Justice Department, it's going to be an uphill battle against these people. We're going to need irrevocable evidence that cannot be tarnished, that cannot be swayed. That's what we're going to need. And to be honest with you, we have a lot of that with these eyewitness reports, with these survivors who have come forward. Now it is up to the federal authorities and the Justice Department to do the right thing. The question is, will they? All right, everybody, if you'd like to contact me, you can do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. And if you enjoy our work here at the podcast and you'd like to help support us, you can click on the GoFundMe link inside of the description box. All right, everybody, I'll be back tomorrow morning with the morning update and the usual daily drop. Enjoy your evening, everybody. Talk to you then.